things started to change when she met Daniel.
Okay.
That she had told us about meeting him, and that she did believe it was going somewhere, so I was happy for her. And I told her, well, as long as he makes her happy, because kids are happy if mom's happy.
Yeah.
Malehya told me that she was not happy. She definitely wanted out of the relationship. And we supported her 100%. My son, I don't know if it was the pressures of trying to support a family. I'm not sure what happened, but he started drinking a lot, started doing the drugs, and in the end, he just didn't care. And she got tired of it and left.
And what kind of change did you notice in her?
She started to get distance. That the last visit she had them here, that was in the summer before Jack's birthday, so that probably would have been around July or August. She did make the comment that it bothered Daniel coming to visit us. That he assumed that she was coming so she could run into Cody. And I thought, well, I mean, they're only young, so we made it clear that, look, if he's got a problem, bring him too.
But I asked her, did he hurt you? She didn't really say he hurt her, but he held her down.
Many people believe they already understand the case of Jack and Lily. The basic facts have been widely reported through news coverage, social media discussions, and public appeals for information. 2 children who disappeared, a mother and her boyfriend, an investigation that continues with few public updates. The story has circulated widely, and with it, numerous assumptions about what happened and who might be responsible. But within the documented accounts from family members, within the statements given to reporters and shared in public forums, there exists a detail that has received less attention than it perhaps deserves. Not a smoking gun, not a definitive answer, but a thread that, when followed carefully, reveals a pattern worth examining. This is not a story about what happened to Jack and Lily on the day they disappeared. That remains under investigation by law enforcement. This is an examination of what occurred in the months and years before their disappearance, a look at sequence, timing, and observable patterns as described by those who knew them, loved them, and watched as access to them gradually diminished. What follows relies exclusively on publicly reported information and statements attributed to family members in news interviews, public statements, and documented conversations. It does not draw conclusions about criminal responsibility. It does not speculate about outcomes or assign blame. It presents a timeline of changes as they were reportedly observed by people who cared about these children and who now live with questions that may never be fully answered. The purpose here is not to convict in the court of public opinion. It is to demonstrate how isolation can occur gradually, how warning signs can be missed in real time, and how the small details that seem insignificant in the moment can take on profound meaning when viewed in retrospect. According to family accounts provided in multiple interviews, Malehya was once described as engaged, present, and meaningfully connected to her extended family. Those who knew her before the changes began have characterized her as someone who valued family relationships, who participated actively in gatherings, and who made efforts to ensure her children knew their relatives. She had 2 children with Cody, her former partner, Jack and Lily. The relationship between Malehya and Cody deteriorated over time, leading to separation. Custody proceedings followed, as they do in many such cases. Court records indicate that Malehya was awarded primary physical custody of both children. Cody maintained visitation rights under the terms established by the court. Family members have stated in public interviews that during this period immediately following the custody arrangement, Malehya maintained regular and open contact with extended family on both sides. She brought the children to family gatherings without apparent reluctance. She responded to calls and text messages in a timely manner. She allowed Jack and Lily to visit grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins without restriction or conditions that seemed unusual. By multiple independent accounts from different family members, there was no indication during this time of estrangement, conflict, or tension that would suggest any desire or intention to limit access to the children. Family relationships appeared stable and functional. The children were visible, accessible, and integrated into the broader family structure. This baseline is important to establish. It provides a reference point against which subsequent changes can be measured. It demonstrates that the isolation that family members say occurred later was not a continuation of pre-existing patterns, but rather represented a departure from established norms. Following the formal custody arrangement, family members report that Jack and Lily were frequently and consistently visible within the extended family network. Birthday parties were attended regularly. Holiday celebrations were shared. Phone calls between the children and their relatives occurred with predictable frequency. Video calls, when distance made in-person visits difficult, were arranged and completed without complication. Photographs from this period, some of which have been shared publicly by family members in appeals for information, show Jack and Lily at various family events. The images depict children who appear comfortable, happy, engaged, and surrounded by relatives who clearly cared for them. There are pictures from birthday parties, from holiday dinners, from casual weekend visits. Malehya herself was described as cooperative and communicative during this time. When family members asked if the children could visit for an afternoon or a weekend, she reportedly said yes without hesitation. When relatives reached out to check in, to make plans, or simply to chat, she reportedly responded in ways that seemed normal and appropriate. There was no documented family complaint from this period suggesting that access to Jack and Lily was being restricted, delayed, or controlled. No family member has stated publicly that during this time they felt concerned about their ability to see or communicate with the children. The relationships functioned as they had before the custody arrangement, with the expected adjustments for Malehya's role as primary custodian. This period of stability serves as the critical reference point for everything that follows. What came later would be measured against these established patterns of accessibility, communication, and family integration. At some point during this period of relative stability, Malehya began a romantic relationship with Daniel Martel. The exact timeline of when this relationship began has not been precisely documented in public records, but family members have indicated that they became aware of the relationship and that it appeared to become serious relatively quickly. Family members have stated in interviews that they were initially supportive of this development. A new relationship after a difficult breakup was viewed as a potentially positive change. According to family accounts, they hoped it would bring stability, companionship, and happiness to Malehya, and by extension create a positive environment for Jack and Lily. There is no indication in any public statement that the family opposed the relationship when it began. No warnings were issued, no concerns were raised publicly about Daniel Martel's character or intentions. No red flags were identified that would have suggested the relationship posed any risk. The relationship was, by all available accounts, welcomed by family members who wanted Malehya to be happy. It is important to state clearly that Daniel Martel has not been charged with any crime related to the disappearance of Jack and Lily. His involvement in this narrative is based solely on his relationship with Malehya and the changes that family members say they observed during the course of that relationship. Nothing presented here should be interpreted as an accusation of criminal conduct. The purpose of including information about this relationship is to provide context for the timeline of changes that family members report witnessing. According to statements from multiple family members given in separate interviews, changes in Malehya's behavior and in family access to the children began slowly. These were not dramatic shifts that occurred overnight. They were gradual alterations in patterns that had been well established during the stability period. Visits that had once been routine, that had occurred weekly or bi-weekly without complication, reportedly became less frequent. Invitations to family gatherings that had previously been accepted as a matter of course were, according to relatives, sometimes declined. The reasons given varied, but family members report that explanations often involve scheduling conflicts, the children being tired, or simply being too busy. Responses to text messages and phone calls reportedly took longer to arrive. Where Malehya had once responded within hours, family members say they began waiting days. In some cases, according to these accounts, messages went unanswered entirely, requiring follow-up attempts before receiving any response. One family member has stated in a public interview that Malehya provided an explanation for some of these changes. According to this relative, Malehya said that Daniel was uncomfortable with the children spending extensive time with her side of the family. The reason given, according to this account, was that he felt it was too much time away from their immediate household, that it disrupted routines, and that it was important for the family unit to spend time together. Another relative recalled being told by Malehya that Daniel preferred the children to stay close to home, that he valued privacy and wanted family time to be more contained within their own household rather than spread across extended family networks. These explanations were reportedly provided by Malehya herself during direct conversations with family members who had asked why visits were becoming less frequent. The last known in-person family visit with Jack and Lily, according to multiple relatives who have spoken publicly, occurred several months before the children's disappearance was reported. The exact date varies slightly in different accounts, but the consistent element is that after this final visit, family members report that they did not see the children face-to-face again. Attempts to arrange subsequent visits were, according to these family accounts, met with postponements, excuses, or no response at all. Family members have described what they characterize as a pattern that became more pronounced and more concerning as time progressed. These descriptions come from multiple relatives, speaking independently, yet describing remarkably similar observations. Malehya, who had once been easily reachable and consistently responsive, reportedly became increasingly difficult to contact. Plans that were made in advance were reportedly canceled at the last minute or postponed indefinitely. Requests to see Jack and Lily, which had once been routine and easily accommodated, were, according to family accounts, met with vague excuses, delays, or promises to reschedule that never materialized. One relative stated publicly that Malehya stopped attending family functions altogether. Events that she had previously attended regularly, birthday parties, holiday dinners, casual weekend gatherings, were missed without explanation or with brief apologies sent via text message. Another family member described a change in communication patterns. Where phone conversations had once been long and detailed, catching up on daily life and the children's activities, they reportedly became brief and superficial. Eventually, according to this account, phone calls went unanswered for extended periods, sometimes for days or weeks at a time. A third relative described receiving text messages that were increasingly vague and non-committal, messages that avoided making specific plans, that promised to get back to you soon without ever following through, that suggested busyness without providing concrete details about what was occupying Malehya's time. These observations are presented exactly as they were reported by family members in public statements and interviews. They are not offered as evidence of criminal activity. They are descriptions of changes in behavior and accessibility as perceived and experienced by people who had previously maintained close and consistent contact with Malehya and the children. Family members have also stated that Malehya's personal independence appeared to diminish during this period. She was reportedly less likely to make plans independently, less likely to leave the house without Daniel, and less likely to engage in activities and hobbies she had previously enjoyed. Social media activity, which had once been regular and included frequent updates about the children, reportedly decreased significantly. Again, these are subjective observations reported by relatives who knew Malehya before her relationship with Daniel Martel began. They represent perceptions and interpretations of changes, not objective facts about intent or causation. Among the various accounts shared by family members, one particular disclosure stands out for its specificity and for what it potentially reveals about dynamics within the relationship. According to a family member who has spoken about this publicly, Malehya privately disclosed an incident during a conversation that occurred some months before the children's disappearance. In this conversation, Malehya reportedly described an argument with Daniel, during which she said she was physically held down and had her phone taken from her. The family member who recounted this disclosure has stated that Malehya did not describe this as part of an ongoing pattern of behavior, but rather as a specific incident that had occurred. She reportedly did not ask for help, did not request intervention, and did not characterize it as abuse requiring outside involvement. The conversation moved on to other topics, and according to this relative, the subject was not revisited in subsequent discussions. This disclosure was shared within the family, but was not, according to those who recall it, reported to law enforcement or other authorities at the time it was disclosed. The family member who heard this account has expressed regret about not taking more serious action in response, but has also acknowledged that at the time, it was unclear what action would have been appropriate or welcome. This account is significant not because it proves wrongdoing or establishes criminal behavior, but because it illustrates a specific moment in which control over communication was reportedly exerted. In situations where isolation occurs, where access to someone becomes progressively restricted, control over how and when that person can communicate with others outside the relationship is a common element. Whether this incident was truly isolated or whether it represented part of a broader pattern of controlling behavior is not known and cannot be determined from this single disclosure. What is documented is that a family member recalls Malehya describing this event, and that this disclosure occurred during the same general time frame when family members report that contact with Malehya became increasingly difficult to maintain. In the months immediately preceding Jack and Lily's disappearance, family members report that sightings of the children became progressively more rare and eventually ceased entirely. The children were no longer brought to family events of any kind. They were no longer available for video calls, with requests for such calls reportedly going unanswered or declined. Physical visits, which had already become infrequent, stopped happening altogether. Requests to see the children were, according to relatives, declined without clear or consistent explanation. One family member has stated that they drove past the residence where Malehya and Daniel were living on multiple occasions, hoping to catch a glimpse of the children playing outside or to have an opportunity for an impromptu visit. They reported never seeing the children during these drive-bys. Another relative described attempting to arrange a meeting at a neutral public location, a park or restaurant, thinking that this might be more acceptable than a visit to a family home. This request reportedly received no response. A third family member described a growing sense of concern, but also a paralyzing uncertainty about what action would be appropriate. They questioned whether they were overreacting, whether they had a right to demand access, whether involving authorities would make the situation worse rather than better. The final known sighting of Jack and Lily by any member of the extended family occurred, by these accounts, several months before they were reported missing to authorities. After that point, according to every family member who has spoken publicly about the case, the children were not seen by anyone outside of Malehya and Daniel's immediate household. Family members have also reported that Malehya and Daniel changed residences during this period of decreased contact. The move was not announced in advance to extended family. According to relatives, they learned of the relocation only after attempting to visit the previous address and discovering it vacant. The new address was not voluntarily shared with extended family members. Some relatives report learning the new location only after the children's disappearance became a matter of public record. These details, when considered individually and in isolation, may not appear particularly unusual. Families do move without announcing it to every relative. Relationships do shift naturally over time. Contact between extended family members does ebb and flow based on life circumstances, schedules, and changing priorities. But when these details are placed in chronological sequence, when they are viewed as part of a continuum of changes rather than as isolated incidents, they form what family members describe as a pattern that alarmed them, in hindsight, far more than it did in real time. At this point in the narrative, it becomes essential to state clearly and explicitly what is confirmed fact and what remains speculation, interpretation, or unknown. It is confirmed, as a matter of public record, that Jack and Lily are missing. It is confirmed that Malehya and Daniel Martel were the last known individuals to have custody and care of the children. It is confirmed that law enforcement agencies are actively investigating the disappearance and that this investigation remains ongoing. It is not confirmed what caused the children to disappear. It is not confirmed that any criminal act occurred. It is not confirmed that any single individual or group of individuals is responsible for whatever happened to Jack and Lily. It is not confirmed that the children came to harm, though the length of time they have been missing makes that possibility increasingly likely. It is not confirmed that the behavioral changes described by family members were the result of coercion, control, manipulation, or any form of abuse. These changes could potentially be explained by other factors: natural evolution of a relationship, legitimate desire for privacy, personal preferences about family boundaries, or countless other reasons that do not involve wrongdoing. What is presented in this narrative are accounts from family members who observed and experienced changes over a period of time. These accounts are remarkably consistent across multiple independent sources, which lends them credibility as accurate descriptions of what these individuals perceived and experienced. But they remain subjective observations, interpretations of behavior, and personal recollections. They are not legal evidence. They are not proof of criminal conduct. Investigations determine responsibility through the collection of physical evidence, the documentation of timelines, the analysis of digital records, and countless other methodical processes that lie outside the scope of family observations. Narratives, no matter how carefully constructed or how compelling, do not and cannot determine guilt or innocence. This script does not accuse any individual of any crime. It does not conclude that any particular person is responsible for Jack and Lily's disappearance. It presents what was reportedly seen, said, and experienced by people who love these children and who now search for answers that may never come. Disappearances, particularly those involving children, rarely happen in a single moment of violence or abduction. More often, they are preceded by months or even years of smaller disappearances, small changes that accumulate gradually, access that narrows incrementally, communication that slows and eventually stops, independence that fades in ways that seem subtle at first but become undeniable when viewed as a whole. In the case of Jack and Lily, family members report observing precisely such a pattern, a mother who became progressively harder to reach, children who became increasingly difficult to see, a relationship that, by family accounts, seemed to create distance and separation where connection and integration had once existed. Whether those changes are directly connected to the children's ultimate disappearance is a question that only a thorough investigation can answer. What can be stated with confidence is this: the signs that something fundamental had shifted were present. They were noticed by multiple family members. They were remembered with increasing clarity as time passed, and they were, for a crucial period, interpreted as ordinary relationship dynamics rather than potential warning signs of something more serious. This is precisely why details matter in cases like this. This is why seemingly small patterns deserve attention and documentation. This is why the gradual nature of isolation makes it so dangerous and so difficult to interrupt. Because in cases where children disappear, where people vanish from the lives of those who love them, the answers very often lie not in the dramatic moments that capture headlines, but in the quiet, incremental changes that occurred long before anyone realized something was profoundly wrong. The case of Jack and Lily remains open. The investigation continues, and the question of what happened to these children, where they are, and who, if anyone, is responsible, remains unanswered. What is known is that they were loved, that they were missed, and that the people who cared about them watched as access to them slowly disappeared, and now live with the knowledge that those small changes may have been the only warning signs they would ever receive.